Okay, good morning. Today's daf is Ayin Vav. We're actually in the middle of Ayin Vav. We're in the middle of a series of attempts to answer a question. In the Mishnah, we had a debate between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer says everybody agrees that a husband has no ability to confirm the vows of his wife before he hears about them and before they take place. Okay, because you can't say that something is confirmed without it being in existence. That's basically the question. On the other hand, Rabbi Eliezer says that when it comes to revoking, then the husband does have the ability to do that ahead of time. And so if the husband says to his wife that your vows are revoked between now and when I return, then they're revoked, according to Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say no, that you can't. And Rabbi Eliezer has a kal v'chomer. Rabbi Eliezer's kal v'chomer is that when it comes to annulling, which is a revoking, which is a harder thing to do than stopping, the husband has an ability to revoke. So certainly when it comes to the easier thing of stopping something from happening in the first place, so then the husband will have the possibility to prevent it from happening. Okay, so that was our Mishnah. And then on that Mishnah, the question was, the revocation that Rabbi Eliezer says happens, is that a true revocation? Meaning, does the oath that does the neder that the woman makes, does that neder take effect and then immediately get undone? Or is that revocation that happens ahead of time effectively precluding the neder from ever taking effect? And so as a result, it's as if it was never made. That's the question that was asked. And we've tried 3 times to try and answer that question. And thankfully, it's been left to us for today, the 4th of the efforts in which we will actually answer the question. And so we are going to begin at Tashma in the middle of Ayin Vav Amud Aleph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. It's actually shorter from the bottom. It's 6 lines up. Today will be a relatively few words of Gemara day, and let's see what we can make of it. So Tashma, so now again, we're trying to answer the question, is it revoked, meaning does it take effect and then get eliminated, or does it never even enter into the question? And as a reminder, the Gemara explained, what's the nafkamina? What's the difference between the two? So if somebody were to hear the wife's vow and to say, and me, is that vow, is that and me calling out, is that a good vow? Because you're adding to a vow that existed, or because the revocation means that her vow never took place, well, then the and me is on nothing. So that's the nafkamina between the 2 viewpoints. Because at the end of the day, her vow is null and void. It's like there was a nothing associated with it. Now, I will note that some of the Rishonim debate the question of the duration of the vow existing. I don't take it that way. I especially as a mathematician, I sort of understand it as sort of the limit as you approach 0. That essentially there is no, whatever amount of actual time, that's too much. Because as soon as it takes effect, it also undoes. And so there is no but the point is that when the person says and me, they're saying and me on the vow, on the language of the vow. So to me, if you say that it takes effect, the point is that the and me is not that you're squeezing the and me into the narrow time window of saying that of when it was a good vow. No, the and me is going limafreya, is going retroactively to whatever infinitesimal amount of time that the avow took effect. You're saying the and me on that, and so as a result, that's how I'm understanding this. But the bottom line is that was the nafkamina. So let's take a look. Which one is it? Is it that it never takes effect, or is it that it takes effect and then gets immediately eliminated? So Tashma Amar Lahem Rabbi Eliezer. So we're quoting a brisa in which Rabbi Eliezer is having a discussion with the Chachamim. Now remember, this discussion began in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah included a discussion where Rabbi Eliezer goes through and says he's got the Kal V'chomer. So that's and then the say and so that was that was and then the Chachamim said back to him, no, we have the concept of Isha Yikimenu v'Isha Yefeirenu, that you have to connect confirming with revoking. Only a vow that's subject to confirmation is capable to be revoked. So let's take a look. So Tashma, Amar Lahem Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer says to them in this conversation that is outside of our Mishnah, but in a Baraisa, Umazuraim Tameim, when it comes to planting seeds that are Tameh, if you plant them, so Kevan Shizra'an Bikarka Tahorin, we see that what happens, the seeds grow into a tree. Grow into something. Well, that thing that grows is tahor. It's not tameh, even though the seeds themselves were tameh, because once you put it into the ground effectively is mitayar. And not only that, but anything that grows from the ground has no ability of even becoming tameh. The ruin, the omdin, lo kol shekain. And certainly something that's already planted, if it were to be touched by something tameh, would not become tahor. This very much differed what we saw yesterday in the third of the efforts. We referenced the mikvah, right? And in the mikvah, if you're holding a sheret, a bug in your hand, and you go into the mikvah, it doesn't do anything. And if you're in the mikvah and you touch a sheret, you're going to be tameh. So the point is it's very different from the planting. But Rabbi Eliezer is saying the analogy should not be made to mikvah, it should be made to planting. And in planting, what happens? It never becomes tameh. It doesn't become tameh for a moment and then lose its tuma. It never becomes tameh. So shma mina lo chaylin. And so you can see from this, from the fact that Rabbi Eliezer, in his debate with the Chachamim, cites to the planting, it must be that he's holding that when a husband says, I'm going to revoke all of your vows between now and when I return from vacation, so all of those vows are as if they never happened at all, and they never took effect. So that was we saved the best for last, and we've now proven that for Rebbe Eliezer it means a total effectively elimination of the words as if they never happened. So as a result, if somebody were to say "and me," it would have no ramifications for Rebbe Eliezer. Obviously, the Chachamim, which is how we paskin, disagree, and it would. But in any event, so now the Rabbanan lo darshe kal v'chomer. So 1 second, the rabbis in our Mishnah do not agree with Rebbe Eliezer kal v'chomer, and so we're going to ask on that, because is that really true? V'hatanya, we have a brisa that seems to suggest that it's a unnamed brisa, so we're going to attribute it to all rabbis. And so as a result, it seems like the Chachamim do hold of this concept. So let's take a look and see what is the discussion in this brisa. So Yachol Yimkor Adam Espito Kishehinara. One might have thought that if you just read the Torah, that a father who has domain over his daughter, a Na'ara, when between 12 and 12 and a half, before she's a Bogeret, that he has the ability to sell her into slavery, into Jewish slavery. Okay, you might have thought that. But Amarta Kal V'chomer, but I can use a Kal V'chomer to undermine it. Why? Because Mechura Kvar Yotza. if she had been sold when she was 11, she would leave the possession of the new owner when she turns 12 because she became a Na'ara. That's the Torah specifically says that. And so if, in fact, if she was already a slave, she would go free. Well, then if she's free, she should never be able to become a slave. So that's so Eino Mechura, Eino Din Shelo Timacher. So if she's not already sold, isn't it obvious that she can't go into slavery? Again, if she was sold at 11, she goes out at 12. Well, then presumably, then she can't be sold when she's 12 and a half and 12 and a quarter because she's already 12. So clearly, the rabbis do hold of this concept. They do hold of the idea of this kal v'chomer, that if you can revoke something, meaning you can revoke her slavery status, then it's easier to prevent it in the first place, right? It's easier to stop it. So why don't the Chachamim hold of Rabbi Eliezer's kal v'chomer? It's the same kal v'chomer, right? It's, I have the power to revoke your statement, and so I should have the power to prevent it from ever happening. So yes, in fact, the Chachamim do hold of this kal v'chomer. But what's going on? But Alma Darshe kal v'chomer. In general, they have this kal v'chomer. However, the shiny hacha, but this is different to Amar Kra, because here we have a pasuk, and it's the pasuk that was cited in our Mishnah, in the response of the rabbis. Isha yikimenu v'isha yifirenu. We're going to have a tying of the concept of confirmation with the concept of revocation. And so came. So only if you have the ability to confirm something do you have the ability to revoke it. And since we all agree that you don't have the ability to confirm it before it was made, so as a result, you don't have the ability to revoke it before it was made. And so if you don't have the ability to revoke it, to confirm it, you don't have the ability to revoke it. And so therefore, that's going to be our lesson. So that is the story, and that's the approach. So, all right. So now that we've dealt with our last Mishnah, we're ready to continue with our next Mishnah. And so we've mentioned that the father and the husband need to revoke the neder on the day that they hear about it. So now we're going to hear what is the meaning of that day. What does it mean to say on that day? So hafaris nedarim kol hayom. So and the Ran adds here at the very first Ran on the Mishnah, Yom Hashmiya. We're talking about the day that the husband hears about it, or the father hears about the vow. That's the day. That's it. So yesh b'davar lahakel ulahachmir, and as a result, there is a strict component and a lenient component associated with it. Now, the Ran helps us here, because I might have thought that strict and lenient means that there's a way in which this could end up being more lenient, and a way that it can end up being more strict in terms of the halachic ramifications. But that is not what is meant. So as a result, the Ran says here, second line of the Mishnah, Rans, it's about 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, 10 lines up in the narrow lines of the Ran on the Ayin Vev Vavam Vev. Lav Davka Lahakel Lachmir. When we say Lahakel Lachmir, it's not a precise language. We're not being precise. That this doesn't have the application here is not talking about some kind of leniency or stricture. Hacha Ella Hakikamer. This is what we're really saying. There are times where a person will end up with more time to revoke a vow. And there'll be times when there's only a little bit of time to revoke the vow. And the point is that this is different from a 24-hour period where we say, oh, it's 3 o'clock today, so you have until 3 o'clock tomorrow. That's me'es la'es. De la'olam zmano shava. Because when you do me'es la'es, well, every day is of equivalent length. So if you have 24 hours, you'll always have the same amount of time. So when we say yesh b'davar lahakel lachamir, it's just saying that sometimes there'll be more time and sometimes there'll be less time. So, Kate, so what are examples of where there's more time or less time? So nidra leile Shabbos, if you were to make a neder once Shabbos began, yafar b'leile Shabbos, you could revoke the vow. The husband could revoke, or the father could revoke the vow on that evening during Leile Shabbos, during the night of Shabbos, Uviyoma Shabbos, and on the next day, Ad Shetech Shach, until it gets dark. Nadra im Shachashecha. However, what happens, excuse me, if the woman makes the neder just before she lights candles, and so as a result, if there's very little time of the day, so Mayfair Ad Shelo Techshach, he can only revoke it until it gets dark. She'im chashcha below a fair, because once he heard about it at the time that it was getting dark, if it gets dark, he's no longer going to be able to revoke, because when we say the same day, we mean a Jewish day, a Jewish calendar day. So if on the 13th of Tammuz, you hear that the husband hears that the wife made a neder, as soon as it becomes the 14th of Tammuz, so that's it. Done. Okay, so all right, so now that we have that, so now we're going to try to understand. We're going to cite a baraisa that actually offers the ace la-ace position, that offers the 24-hour position, and then we will try to explain why that 24-hour, or why each opinion has its viewpoint. We're going to cite the psukim themselves to understand what's going on. So Tanya, we have a brisa. Hafarat Nedarim Kol Hayom. The Tanna Kama says that you have the ability to revoke the vow all day. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, Amru, they say, no, you don't have just all day. You have me'es la'es. You have a 24-hour period. So my time at the Tanna Kama, what's the reasoning of the Tanna Kama? Meaning, what's the scriptural citation for the Tanna Kama? Amar Kra, the Torah tells us, B'yom Shama, on the day that he heard. So what does on the day that he heard mean? It means the calendar day. As soon as the calendar day changes, that's it. Sorry, Charlie. So the Rabbanan and the rabbis say, what about, why do they, meaning now, here, the Rabbanan, reference to the Rabbanan, one might think, well, that's the majority opinion. No, the Rabbanan here just refers to Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. What is it that they are saying? What's their scriptural citation? My time, what's their reason? Diksiv miyom el yom, right? So they, again, we have a different pasuk that says that, and here the pasuk says, V'im hacharesh yacharish la isha miyom el yom, from one day to the next day, or that one could understand it that way. So that implies miyom el yom, that implies a 24-hour period. Because if I say from today at X time to tomorrow at X time, that's a 24-hour period. And that's sort of the implication of miyom el yom. That it doesn't say today. It specifically seems to be suggesting an alternative to today. So now we want to understand what each opinion does with the other viewpoint. Well, one second. The Tanna Kama who said that it says B'yom Shama, so I don't understand how you could possibly say it means anything other than on the same day. What does he do with the fact that it also says Miyom El Yom? So it's drech. He needs it for another purpose. B'yom Shamo, because what might I have thought if I heard the day of his hearing? I might have thought Hava Amina Bimama in Bilel Yalo. that when is he able to make this revocation? Only during daytime. Maybe biyom shama'o means during the daytime that he hears it. And as a result, if he hears it about at nighttime, he won't be able to revoke the vow. He'd have to wait until the next morning. So that might have been what I thought. Well, therefore, ksiv miyom el yom, since it says from today until tomorrow, that suggests that there is a greater ability than just during the daytime, and it's understood to mean that it means from the moment you hear it until the next nightfall, and that's what biyom shama'o means. Okay, so now we understand the Tanakama's position. Of course, that's the position of our Mishnah, and we'll see that that's the position that we're going to stick with. But what about the other Rabbanan? What about Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon? What do they say? So, Umanda Amar Miyom Yom, those opinions who say that it's 24 hours, Haksi B'Yom Shma'o, it says the Shma'o, it says the day that he heard it. So how do they understand the day that he heard it? Why would you think it means something different? It's again, we need it. We need it, though, from the opposite direction. When it came to the Tanakama, we might have thought that it was the narrow period of just daytime. And so we needed Miyom El Yom to expand it to say even the nighttime. Now we're going to go do the opposite. We needed to iksiv miyom el yom, because if I only had miyom el yom, I might have thought that yom el yom doesn't mean from today to tomorrow. It means from today, from Yom Rishon to Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni to Yom Sheni. That essentially it means a week. That it means miyom, today, this day of the week, el yom, until the exact same day of the week. So I might have thought hava amina mechad b'shaba lechad l'shaba lefer law, that it means a week, that it means the same day as the day on which he heard. So he would have 7 days. So ksiv b'yom shamo. So the fact that it tells us b'yom shamo says no, don't read it as a day, as a full week, but rather read it that you have a 24-hour period. And so as a result, that is the approach. And now we get two quotations of the halacha. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Ein halacha ka'os hazog. The pair of rabbis, namely Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, they are not correct. The halacha is not like them. Levi Samar L'me'avad Kahani Tanai. Now Levi had thought again to do like those Tanaim. So Amar Le Rav told him, Hachi Amar Chavivi, my beloved, my uncle, and we'll see who that is, says Ein halacha ka'oso hazog. That pair is not the case. So take a look at the Ran Chavivi, 1, 2, 3, 4th line up in the widest of the lines of the Ran, at the near the end of the line, Chavivi, Rabbi Chia. This is referring to Rabbi Chia, Shahaya Dodo Shel Rav, because he was the uncle of Rav. The Kaimalan Hachi, the Haparas Nedarim Kol Hayom, because that when it comes to the ability to revoke the vow, it is only on that day, the Sulo, and not any further. And that is like the Kistam Mishnah, and it's like our Stam Mishnah, which makes total sense. In general, we paskin like a Stam Mishnah. So as a result, the halacha is that in order to revoke the vow, you need to revoke it from on the day that you hear it, on the Jewish calendar day that you hear it. And so if the vow is made at night, it needs to be revoked either that night or the next day. And if it's revoked, if it's made during the daytime, it needs to be revoked before it becomes night. Okay, so as a result of telling this story, we're now going to tell two related halachot that really are we'll see. Let's take a look at the first one. So Chia bar Rav Shade Gira Uvadik. That Chia bar Rav. Now this is I don't think this is the same Rav Chira, that is Rav's uncle. I think this is somebody who was named after him. But in any event, Agav Grara de Rav, because we talked about Rav, Maisi Haka, we're bringing this story also. I'm sorry, that's now jumping into the Ran. The Ran 3 lines up on the widest of the lines. Agav Grara de Rav, because we brought this first story of Rav, Maisi Haka, we also bring this one. So Ha Dechia Bar Rav Shadigira Ubadik, that he would send out arrows and then he would do some investigation. Ba'od Shahaya Misasek Liyaros Chitzim, at the same time that he was sending out arrows, which you need to be a little careful about. When you're shooting arrows, you should be wary of where you're shooting them. Haya Badok Adam Habalafanov, he would go and investigate somebody who came before him, Lahatir Nidro, in order to nullify their vows. Vishoalo, and what would he ask him? He would ask him, Im mitcharetz, or do you regret making the vow? Umatiro. And if the person says, yes, I regret making the vow, then he would be mater for him. He would permit him to vow. To kasavar potchin bicharata. Because you may remember that we had this question of when you have a peticha, an opening, in order to revoke a vow. And we dealt with the complicated question of whether or not there was a mistake associated with the vow. That if one had been aware of the full circumstances that at the time and was capable of being aware of those full circumstances at the time, would they have still made the neder? And according to everybody in that situation, you can revoke the neder. But we also saw that there are some who say that, you know what, regret is enough. And that is the position that Chia Bar Rav took, that regret is enough. And so as a result, he can multitask, because how much attention does he really need to give to ask somebody, do you regret it? And if the person says, yes, I regret it, well, then he has the ability, we're done. Exactly. He has the ability to nullify it. So poskim b'charata umushum haki lo hayatzarach ilim so pesach. He didn't have to do some great investigation to find some kind of opening of a mistake. He only needed to find regret. And similarly, Rabba Bar Rav Huna Yosef B'Kayim. Similarly, Rabba Bar Rav Huna would stand, or would sit rather, Yosef to sit, or B'Kayim, or he'd stand. Meaning, when somebody came and said, "Listen, Rabba, I need your help. I need to revoke my vow," he would say, you know what? Whatever I'm doing, if I'm sitting, great, I'm sitting. If I'm standing, great, I'm standing. I don't need to sit down and give you my 100% attention. If I'm doing something, if I'm up and walking, I can give you enough attention to get from you, do you regret? And if you regret, so then it'll be fine. And let's take a look and see that that's what it means. Shelo hayamidakbek bedavar. The Ran explains, last line. He didn't have to be so investigative about it. He didn't have to be so thorough. Great word. Ella omed v'yoshiv kamoshaya. He could stand or he could sit, however he was. Right, Mizdaminlo, and he would once he was invited and asked to participate in this and to do this, he would be able to do it. So, bottom line is that we see that in fact charata is enough, and that is in fact how we paskin. That's how we can do hataras nedarim every year when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because all you need is regret. I regret having made the Nedarim. And of course we say we don't regret the good deeds that we did, but we regret having made it into a Nedarim. Exactly. So that is the story. And now we will pick up, God willing, tomorrow with the interesting question. Our Mishnah mentioned that the woman made her vow either on the Sabbath, exactly. So I might have thought that you can't revoke a vow on Shabbos. because, it's Shabbos. How can you revoke a vow on Shabbos, right? We don't change reality on Shabbos. We don't build, we don't construct, etc. So you could think, but yet our Mishnah says we can. So, or certainly seems like it says we can. So, in order to have that discussion, God willing, you'll have to come in to be here tomorrow. So have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to our learning, God willing, tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.